The big one is coming with a mega tsunami, a huge earthquake signaling the end times. This is what Turks fear, and that the earthquake and tsunami will have millions of victims. This is following yesterday's huge earthquake with various signals of something happening days before the earthquake. And it was not just one earthquake in the area of northeast Aegean Sea, of the Mediterranean Sea, towards the coast of Turkey, near Smyrna, just south of Istanbul. The point is that they had animals creeping and crawling all over the cities in the area days before this earthquake. The earthquake was in the sea off the island of Mytilene of Lesbos, and it was at a 10-kilometer depth. It was at 6.1 magnitude at about 3:30 yesterday afternoon. About 10 minutes after that, they had a 4.6, and then they had a small earthquake 10 minutes after that. They had 3 earthquakes, one after the other. Buildings fell. Old buildings, of course, had sustained a lot of damage. Even newer buildings that were built by earthquake-resistant building codes sustained damages. There was one fatality in Mytilene, a mother of 2, who suffered from cancer. And unfortunately, people are now fearing that it's the beginning of an onslaught of huge earthquakes. And these huge faults, earthquakes, are, of course, usually stronger in Turkey with thousands of victims. Now, if you'll see, the fault lines of the Eastern Mediterranean, the Greece and Turkey fault lines, are full of volcanoes. We have strong earthquakes in this area. And you also see not horizontal, but a vertical line going through Syria and Israel. The reason I'm referring to that is that they have also announced that they're expecting a major, huge, catastrophic earthquake. And Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has come out saying that people should be alert because they are expecting a huge earthquake in the next couple of years. So as you can see in this earthquake map of the Eastern Aegean, South Mediterranean, Greece and Turkey are infiltrated with active volcanoes. And we also have the non-European volcanoes, 3-4 of them around the Sea of Galilee area. That's a fault line, of course. We know that from Galilee all the way down to the River Jordan actually runs through a fault line that ends up to the Dead Sea, ending into the Red Sea. That is all a fault line. So we do have major, huge fault lines in this area that seem to be coming apart. One of the active volcanoes, possible active volcanoes, a little red triangle you see on the eastern part of the central east of Turkey, is of course in the area of Smyrna, where you had all those snakes coming out a couple of days ago. The snakes obviously were able to sense high-pitched vibrations, very sensitive vibrations because of their small little heads. They were able to sense that something was coming and they wanted to flee that area, coming out into the open to save their little lives. Of course, nobody knew that that was their reason for coming out until the earthquakes happened. This is the beginning of the summer tourist season in both Greece and Turkey. So you can imagine not only the residents, but even the tourists were scared by the inundation of all these not so small snakes, and most of them are, as you know, poisonous. Now, translating this from Turkish to Greek to English, this is what the article says, translated from a Turkish article. There is the existential terror that's overwhelmed Turkey after the mega earthquake of 6.2 magnitude Richter as the worst scenario that's been put on the table, revealing that it could turn into Golgotha of the area, because they expect this huge earthquake, the fault lines to become activated and ending up all the way from Smyrna and all the way going up to the very populated capital. Well, it's not a capital. Ankara is a capital, but It's one of the biggest cities in Turkey, being Istanbul, on the European side of Turkey. They expect a mega earthquake and a tsunami, which will leave millions of victims, because these fault lines are all interconnected, and they expect the big one to hit Istanbul. The Turks are afraid of a potential domino effect of earthquakes that could be triggered, and it was a common secret that a great earthquake they've been waiting for a huge earthquake for some time now, that there was a chance it would not be the main earthquake. The mayor of Ankara, as we know, Ankara is the capital of Turkey. The mayor of Ankara has repeatedly made shocking statements saying that the earthquake of 6.1 off Lesbos that took place yesterday, you have to hear what he said, that was caused by HAARP, and it was caused by an American HAARP system. This is what his declarations are, that the earthquake yesterday was caused by the American HAARP system, HAARP. And indeed, he demanded the investigation of whether there were sea ships in the region that belonged to other countries. He says, now I think this may be an artificial earthquake, in that it was a man-induced earthquake on purpose. I do not say that is certain, but there is a lot of probability. This is what he pointed out in his tweet. Quote, I say we definitely need to investigate this. Was there a ship doing seismic surveys? If so, which country does it belong to? And for him to say this, obviously, he's not saying this just to spout wind. He's saying this because he's got proof. Ibrahim Melik Göksek. His tweet is in, you'll see it in the article in Greek. I'll leave for you. It's in Turkish. Let's translate it from Turkish to English and see what it comes out. In translating the Ankara mayor's statement, it doesn't make any sense from Turkish to Google English. It says, now this earth will be thinking to be an earthquake. I always know the theme. It's a serious possibility. That's what he says. Now, according to the Turkish newspaper Hürriyet, the earthquake caused panic in Smyrna, Constantinople, which is of course Istanbul, Kanakkale, Tekirdağ, Adrianopolis, Manisa, and Bursa, where especially the latest videos from the disasters are shocking. The Department of Disaster Management and Emergency Situations, the AFAD of Turkey, reported earlier that the area where the earthquake was most felt was Karaburun. Hürriyet newspaper contacted the governor of the homonymous region, who said, quote, on the basis of what I know so far, fortunately there are no injuries or significant material damage. It was, however, a very powerful earthquake. We felt the earth tremble for more than 10 seconds, and we believed that the building would collapse. The world has been worried, while many citizens have come out on the streets afraid of aftershocks. Overall, however, calmness is prevailing. Now, the citizens of Smyrna said, quote, we thought we were going to die, end quote. Now, the citizens and the governor of Smyrna, Erol Aginitz, declared that a lot of people in the area up to this point were very used to strong earthquakes, but this one was different because it lasted so long. This one made them feel that they were definitely going to die. A Turkish seismologist recommends that people do not yet enter their homes, sleep out at night, and keep out of the buildings just in case there are aftershocks. And now that the buildings are loosened from the first 3 huge earthquakes, it means that they're more susceptible to crumbling and damaging and, of course, giving more victims. Professor Sherif Baris, head of the Department of Geophysics and Geological Engineering at the University of Kocaeli, says it is normal to have earthquakes of this magnitude in the area about every 2 years, where people have learned to live with these phenomena. According to him, the magnitude of the aftershocks may range from 5 to 5.3 degrees magnitude and excludes the possibility of a tsunami. However, like many of his colleagues in Athens, in Greece, the professor recommends that the world remain outside the world, meaning the people, remain outside their homes until the danger is over. And of course, cold sweat has long swamped Turkish experts and officials from the capabilities of the American HAARP system, which causes earthquakes. The Turks have long been talking about targeting the wider region of Marmara and, of course, Constantinople. In other words, that HAARP is targeting the eastern areas of Turkey, Marmara, and the Constantinople here meaning Istanbul. Turkish reports say that, quote, Westerners can cause an artificial earthquake in Turkey to bend the morale and plans of the current political leadership. Besides, this was exactly what the Iranians had in earthquakes in their country, and the Chinese with the flood-like rains that had long been crashing the northwest area of China, they claim. So in other words, they're saying this could be the cause of HAARP, which is used not only for earthquakes, but for weather modification. Now, this is not just talking. This is not just theoretical stuff, because of the fact that even Benjamin Netanyahu came out in order to alert the people of Israel. He believes that any time now a huge earthquake will hit Israel as well. We know even from antiquity, even the time of Jesus Christ, Israel and Jerusalem was filled with earthquakes. At the crucifixion, there was a huge earthquake in Jerusalem. But going back to this article, the earthquake in the area of the Aegean Sea that we had yesterday, the earthquake provokes the area around Marmara Sea, according to the study by French scientists from 6 months ago, which published primary findings of the report for an earthquake. The French experts believe that there is already intense seismic mobility in the subsoil of the region, and a possible 7 to 8 magnitude earthquake would lead to total destruction of the entire Marmara area, causing millions of victims. Faults are now in the red. The North Aegean, where we had the earthquake yesterday, the area of the North Aegean is in the red of Greeks and foreign scientists, geologists, as the sea crosses essentially the Anatolian fault, which extends towards Evia of Greece, and the Anatolian rupture is not accidentally named by the scientists as a bomb ready to explode. It is a bomb ready to explode, the big one. Nor is it a random study of seismologists from all over the world, and they conclude that at some point it will give an earthquake at more than 7.5 magnitude. The rupture is 1,200 kilometers from the south of the Caspian to the Aegean Sea. So it all the way from the Caspian of Russia, from Russia, all the way into the Aegean Sea of the Mediterranean. Now we come to the area that seismologists, geologists call the Devil's Triangle. The area that penetrates the western part of the Greek seismic arc has its honor these days due to the earthquake in Cephalonia. In any case, it is the one that presents the greatest seismic activity over time, not only in Greece, but throughout Europe, and one of the most red, quote-unquote, areas in the world. The earthquakes at this point reach even a 7.5 degrees of the Richter scale, that's 7.5 magnitude, and there is continuous seismic activity. The area is also known as the seismic triangle of the Devil's Triangle, as there are 3 areas that touch the Greek arc: the contact and convergence boundary of the African, the Eurasian lithosphere plate, with the first being submerged under the second at a speed of a whopping 4.5 centimeters a year. That's about a finger's length. Well, a finger's length, index finger length. That's how much it moves every year. Although the largest activity occurs in the area between Lefkada and Preveza and south of Kalamata, there are 3 areas that are in the red. The first edge of the triangle lies north of Lefkada, the second south of Cephalonia, which is in the Ionian Sea towards Italy, and Tuesday extends from Zakynthos to Lefkada, referring to Tuesday's quake of 6.2. Basically, it's from Turkey all the way down towards where you see this black arc coming vertically down towards the red. That's the area. that is affected by this Devil's Triangle. Basically, it affects the whole of Greece, as we can see with this blue area indicating here on this map. Then we come to the area of Corinth and Atalanti. Atalanti is going from eastern Greece all the way to western Turkey. So second in seismicity and capacity is the Corinthian area. Here is in Atalanti the fuses under 24-hour watch by scientists, and they can give rise to large-scale earthquakes. The Corinthian belt, beginning from Aio, reaching Alkyonides, consisting of systems of fractures that even threaten Attica, the area of Athens, capital of Greece. They have proven it. Like the Alkyonides fault, which gave the almost 7 Richter back in 1981, something similar happened to the Atalanti fault. Active and with great dynamics, it is unknown when and how it can strike. God forbid if it does. Everybody's afraid of that Atalanti fault. The fact that this last big blow was in 1894 with an earthquake of 7 Richter that sent 255 people to their death, according to seismologists, shows that it can hit rarely but with terrible proportions. And then we have the fault lines of Athens. In the wider area of Attica, where we have Athens, more than 10 active breaks have been recorded from the mapping of recent years. Of these, the largest ones are found in the Saronic Gulf, Kakia Skala, Agia Apostoli, Avlona, Oropos, Diresi, Platea, and all of them between the seismic zones of the Corinthian Gulf and Thebes, from where strong earthquakes originate. But 3 of the major fault lines that most threaten Athens. The first major fault lines north of Thriasia Field, which is just towards north of Menidi. It's about 15 kilometers long, defining the southwestern Parnitha, the mountain of Parnitha, which gave the huge earthquake back in 1999, September 7th. That's where we still have people there living from that devastating earthquake. They're living in that shanty town where we have our church of St. Sozon, and we help them live in this day and age of the economic crisis. Anyway, so that was the center of that earthquake in 1999. And what is most frightening to the ignorant is the fact that it is in the place where the epicenter of the 99 earthquake was located. The same is true of the other 2. Like what we call in the Dionysos fault, it's a smaller one than the previous one, 12 kilometers in length, and crosses the area from Rosia all the way down to Rafina. The third active fault is what we know as the Avlona fault. This is the largest with a length of more than 18 kilometers, located to the north of Parnitha. Dynamics of all these 3 incidents is unknown, although professors point out that they, quote, can cause disastrous earthquakes above 5.5 magnitude, stressing that the greatest risk is caused by faults in the periphery of Attica, particularly Thriasio, Mesoia, and North Attica. Well, that's bad news because that's exactly where I live, and that's where our church is. I've translated this for you from Greek into English. This is an article on the Greek site Triklopodia. I'll leave a link below for you for this.